Okay. I call this September 28, 2020 meeting of the Newberry County School District Board of Trustees to order. We have a quorum present with all members present this evening. Mr. Suber, are there any amendments to the agenda?
No, ma'am, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Lake, if you would lead us with our invocation, please.
Dear Father, we come before you this evening, and that, Lord, for each one of the school board members here and for the district office staff, our administrators, our teachers, Lord, all the employees of the school, I pray a special blessing over them. I pray that, Lord, that all decisions that we have to make, that, Lord, that you would give each one of us wisdom, and that each one of us, Lord, that whatever portion that you've given us, that we'd be able to bring it to the table. And Father, I just thank you for looking after the kids in the school district. And again, I just ask for wisdom in any decisions that we make. I ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I would like to welcome all that are watching us this evening, all of our teachers and parents and community members. And I would also like to recognize our media that is also watching us online. All right, Mr. Suber. Oh, I forgot the pledge. Excuse me. All right, please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any special recognitions this evening?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Ware?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Suber, we have not done special recognitions in a while, and we have decided it's very important to continue to recognize the outstanding efforts of our students and staff members. Tonight we are beginning that recognition again and are going back to honor these students and employees who are to be recognized at the March meeting. These certificates are being sent to the schools for distribution. Our high schools all participated in the Beta Club Convention in Myrtle Beach in February. Our students participated in various competitions, and we are proud to announce the winners tonight. From Mid Carolina High School, Ashlyn Kynard, first place in Visual Arts, Division I, Recyclable Art. Bailey Goss, first place in Visual Arts, Division II, Painting. Tyler Shackelford, first place in Speech, Division I. Emma Grace Conley, first place in Speech, Division II. Rachel Redd, second place in Drawing, Division I. Tara Easterlin, second place in Drawing, Division II. Group events for Mid Carolina High School include second place in 3D Design, Kendallin Haltewanger, Ella Morales, and Elijah Covington. Third place in Service Learning Showcase, Emma Wicker, Ashlyn Kynard, Sarah Bryant, Emily Davis, Erica Davis, and Josie Blanchard. Second place in Quiz Bowl, Harrison Scott, Christopher Scott, Jeremy Hollowell, Tara Easterlin. Mid Carolina High School also received the Gold Key Award for having a more than 10% increase in convention attendance. The Mid Carolina High School Beta Club sponsors are Tacey Allen, Phyllis Chevy, Kendra Durant, Nicole Frick, Tabitha Harmon, Lavania Alexander, and Tiffany Lyles. Newberry High School also attended the Beta Club convention. The winners from Newberry include Ethan Hawkins, first place in the Language Arts 12th grade academic test. Azuciana Mejia Santiago, second place in On-Site Painting Division II. Kaylee Laprice, third place in Recyclable Art Division I. Azuciana Santiago and Denise Cabon Racinos, third place in 2D Design. Newberry High's group awards include a first place in Robotics with Sydney Glasgow, Muhammad Hassan, Shavante Powell, and Kivas Tribble. The Newberry High School Beta sponsors and chaperones are Allison Hall, Taylor Harmon, Leslie McDuffie, Hal Mooneyham, Hannah Rowe, Deidre Appleby, Brian Redd, and Benjamin Washington. From Whitmire High School, for the Beta Club Convention, Grayson Brock placed first in Division II Black and White Photography, Olivia Martin, third place in 9th grade math academic testing. The group award for Whitmire included first place in the portfolio competition, and those members are Grayson Brock, Amelia Bruyere, Ashley Felker, Barrett Martin, Olivia Martin, Mikhail Moss Jenkins, Alexis Sanders, and Hannah Wagner. Whitmire has won 7 state awards in this category since it began competing in 2008. Also from Whitmire High School, Ms. Laverne Brock received recognition at the Senior Beta Club Convention in Myrtle Beach for having served as the lead sponsor for the Whitmire Senior Beta Club for 30 years. Congratulations to all our Beta Clubs for their success at the convention. We also want to recognize from Mid-Carolina High School, Darian Bookman. Congratulations to Darian Bookman, an 11th grader at Mid-Carolina High, for being named to the AAA Boys South Carolina Basketball Coaches Association All-State Team. From Newberry High School, Chad Carey was selected to be the head coach of the North team at the North-South All-Star Game played in Rock Hill. Now, switching a little bit to recognize some of our middle schoolers that we've missed. Mid-Carolina Middle School has a state winner in the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow contest. The group, led by Project Lead the Way teacher Cecilia Kelly, proposed a plan to address the problem of children and infants dying from hyperthermia when left unattended in locked vehicles. The team's solution was a sensor alarm system that monitors CO2 levels and temperature and sets off high-intensity LEDs. The team won $15,000 toward technology and classroom materials for their design. Team members include Jack Gant, Gage Gillum, Ray Livingston, and Zoe Reed. Also from Mid-Carolina Middle School, Amber Moore. Amber placed second in the South Carolina Career Development Association Poetry Contest. Her poem was judged on how she celebrated and inspired career development with a positive tone while emphasizing the national theme, My Inspiring Future Career. Mid-Carolina Middle School was recently redesignated as a Schools to Watch by the National Forum to Accelerate Middle Grades Reform. They received their initial designation in 2017 and applied for redesignation. During this time, the teachers and administrators had to demonstrate that they are continuing to meet the National Forum's rigorous criteria of academic excellence, developmental responsiveness, social equity, and organization with a supportive structure. Our final recognition tonight is Ms. Tricia Ulch, the School Nurse Coordinator. Tricia was selected as the D.D. Tuning School Nurse Administrator of the Year. This award is presented annually by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control and the South Carolina Department of Education to publicly recognize a registered nurse functioning in a school nurse administrator role who excels at administrating and coordinating quality school nursing and school health programs. This award is presented each year at the annual School Nurse Conference. And I want to give us a virtual round of applause to all of our students and staff. Again, the students will receive their certificates from the principal at the school. They will be given to the principals tomorrow at the leadership team meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, without objection, the minutes of the July 27th, 2020 board meeting will be approved. Okay. All right, and now we have action items, and Ms. Ware, you're...
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Suber, tonight I bring you 2 policies for second reading. These 2 policies are GBAA and JIAA, Sexual Harassment and Retaliation. Policy GBAA gives directives for staff. Policy JIAA gives directives for students. Both policies are a result of the U.S. Department of Education publishing its final rule under Title IX in May of this year. And I'll be glad to answer any questions regarding these policies.
Dr. Ware, I don't have any problem with the policies as they're written, and most of the time we get these policies, they're on model policies from the School Boards Association.
Yes, sir.
But while we're doing this, I want every student that we have going to school to feel safe and to feel like they're not going to be bullied or intimidated. But I'm also very much aware of a strategic and well-funded push to indoctrinate students into what I call the thinking of the sex and the gender revolution. And in this new world, as they call it, all things that are LGBTQ and gender bending are welcomed and encouraged, and at the same time parents are portrayed as suspect and out of touch. So I have in the last 10 days been made aware of a organization that we bought books and magazines from for years that has unsolicitedly sent some books out to some teachers. And some of them have become aware of, they took the time to read the books and look at them. And my point is this: I want us to get on top of this because I want to protect every child, but I don't want us as public schools to be indoctrinating our students. We want, when they come to school, they ought to feel safe and they ought to feel welcome, but they shouldn't be made feel like your parents don't know what they're talking about and this is a new world. So that's my concern right now. Some of the things I read, the social agendas and identity politics of adults are being forced on the children, and some of them are even using safety in schools as a guise to get in under that. So I say all that to make the board aware of what I've read, and I trust you completely. We want to do what's right by our children, but at the same time we don't want to become one of those schools that's indoctrinating students.
Yes, sir. I've not been made aware of any books being sent to our employees, but if any of our employees listening that have gotten them, if they don't mind sending that information to me, I'll be glad to look into it with Ms. Singletary and Dr. Carey.
Yeah, and again, I don't blame the publication. I think there's a lot of money pushing this on them, and I'm just glad that a few teachers said, hey, let's look at this before we put them out. We used to ask parents to come into school and look through the books before your children look at them. Things are a little bit different now, so maybe we can guard against that a little bit closer.
Yes, sir. All right. Madam Chair, these policies are action items.
Right. Do we have any further discussion? All right. Do we have a motion to
So
approve?
moved.
Okay, a second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dowd?
Madam Chair, Mr. Suber, and members of the board, you should have a copy of this month's cash flow report through August 31st, 2020. The prior month's balance was $21.6 million. Deposits for the month of August was $3.8 million, and claims for $7.3 million, for an ending balance August 31st of $18.2 million. On the next page, this is broken down by fund. General fund, $9.2 million. Federal projects, $4.6 million. EIA funds, $3.9 million. And other state restricted funds, $730,000, for an ending balance, once again, of $18.2 million. On the following page is a review of our technology and construction funds balance. August 31st, 2020, the balance is $722,000, with expenditures for the month of August of $8,659, and that was for replacement of the office area carpet floor tiles at Whitmire Community School. The following pages are expenditure and budget, expenditure and revenue budget reports and expenditure reports for your information, and I'll try to answer any questions you have at this time.
I don't think we have any questions.
All right. I'll just move on to a very, very brief budget update, because I feel like you've all probably read the news and seen the reports as well as I have. The Senate back about the middle of September 17th, did pass some additional budgetary items for the budget. It then went to the House, and the House actually just sent it to Ways and Means. There it will more than likely die, and therefore we will not have any additions to the budget, and we will continue to operate on the continuing resolution that we currently have in place. What they did say is if they see that there is a need, when they come back in January, they will review it once again, and there's potential that they could make some changes at that time. One of the things that the Senate put in that it did not get any consideration by the House is $50 million for teacher steps, $6 million for school nurses, and $500 million set aside for any mid-year budget cuts if necessary. So that was the Senate projection. The House, like I said, Speaker Lucas immediately sent it to Ways and Means. There was no discussion, and typically at that point in time, the actual bill will die. So I'll try to answer any questions you got at this time.
Just out years ago when we had the recession and we had some really lean years and we took cuts, one of the options that we had on the table was to not honor the step increase.
Yes, sir.
We did that anyway because we were told we would have to make that up. Are we going to have to make this step up if they don't fund it?
My understanding right now, as it is written in proviso, is districts are not allowed to give a step.
Okay.
Now, I don't foresee, but anything can happen. I do not foresee them coming back in session at any point in time and saying, you are obligated to give a step, but we are not going to fund it. I do not foresee that. What they have done, in essence, has suspended or frozen the steps. Now, that does not mean that the teacher didn't get an additional year of experience. So what has to happen right now is there's got to be a way to show that additional year without an actual salary increase happening along with it. And that's an accounting function that's got to happen. Right now, obviously, no salary increases have been performed, but the actual step, the actual year of experience needs to show correctly.
But theoretically, they could come back in January and fund it.
Theoretically, they could.
Okay, I just remember that, we didn't have the money to do it, but we were going to have to make it up later.
And we were fortunate. We did, and with school board approval, continue on with our steps. And I'm very thankful, and I think everyone's very thankful we did that. I'll be honest with you, there are a few school districts that just caught back up those steps monetarily.
Yeah, we knew it would be, it's either pay me now or pay me later, and we felt like at that point it was better to go ahead and take it out of fund balance. I remember that. So I just didn't know if they were going to force us to
And
do
honestly,
that
it didn't really cost us very much, even when we did that. So we were very fortunate.
Thank you.
But Ms. Dowd, am I not correct that back then, they did not tell everybody that
They
you
did
could not do it? This time, they said no one.
No one gives steps. They did. And I'm thankful that they did it that way. I feel like that keeps districts, I mean, we're not on an even playing field now, but at least it doesn't allow districts that maybe can't afford it. Yes, exactly. In addition, they continued suspension of the cap for active retirees. It actually, as of September 1st, ended, so they continued that, so that if there are active retirees and you need to look to them for hiring purposes, they can come back without the $10,000 cap. As far as CARES Act funding is concerned, there are no additional dollars, an additional appropriation, but the appropriation that is unspent by the State Department of Education, they have been given approval for certain things that they could use, funds that haven't been spent, such as PPE for school districts, tutors, technology, interventionist or extended learning programs. They were specific in how those could be allocated, but they have given the Department of Education permission to allocate unused CARES Act funds at this point in time. Now, I'm not aware of how they're going to do that. I haven't heard anything as far as an application process or any kind of information such as that, but it did allow for them to do that.
Were there any other suspensions like in the retirement fund or the health insurance cost? Have they?
That is continued. They did not increase that.
They're going to leave all that level?
That they have left that.
I thought the House of Representatives were pretty vocal in their support for teachers, but they were scared to commit with the uncertainty of the economic future. And so they said, if we don't have a middle of the year shortfall and we come back and we're above budget, we're going to give it to them. So I'm going to be optimistic about it. But
Well,
at the same
I would like to be that way too. So.
That's right. That's all it is. I just wondered if the cash flow or the payments from the state for July and August have been prompt like normal?
They have.
Okay.
They have.
Have it, any reimbursement for any CARES Act money?
Our first, we got approval for the LEAP funding for LEAP Week. That got submitted last week, or week before last, actually. And so that was approved. So I suspect we should be getting those funds, hopefully. We've not gotten any reimbursement yet. The first quarterly reimbursement is due next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Dr. Ware?
Madam Chair, members of the board, included in your board packet was our hiring profile for this year. And on your screen, you will see our teachers hired. We hired 43 teachers. And you can see the contract status of those 43. We still have one long-term sub that we have in our district right now, and that's a high school math position. And the 2 vacancies, we actually filled one of those, was an elementary special ed position that was filled with a contract provider. So we still have one vacancy at middle school math.
How about the Spanish positions that we were having trouble getting filled?
We are working with a company called Adminum on those right now, and they're not included in this because we do have Adminum providing the instruction.
So we have a body in place.
We have a person in place to monitor the students, but the curriculum is developed, is delivered, and Ms. Singletary knows a whole lot more about that than I do. You can stay right there and say it.
It's a teacher that teaches virtually to our students through Edmentum. And so the platform, they get all the information through the computer, but she is there communicating with them, emailing and contacting parents as well.
Okay, I haven't heard anything the last week, but I was getting some phone calls about
Yes,
that.
you were, because what happened was we're not the only district that's using Edmentum.
Okay.
And so there was a backlog in getting everyone in and registered, and they picked a perfect time. It was a perfect storm to transfer over to a different login system. So we had a couple of hiccups. So I'm glad to hear you haven't heard any calls in the last week, because everybody is up and running now.
Okay.
And we've been able to, because it is self-paced, then students will be able to not, like as I shared with parents, they're not behind because it's self-paced. The faster they work.
Are we using the same platform for virtual and hybrid?
Yes, sir, we are.
It's a long way from perfect, though. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I say for the first time in my life, we're suffering on the Spanish language, for especially the juniors and seniors that are going to college next year.
Well,
And my heart bleeds for that.
It does, and I think part of that is because, I feel like we'll see a better return with our freshmen that are going in because it's Spanish 1. But I think, unfortunately, because, the rigor and the way that they teach it, of course, was different the way that our teachers taught it. So the kids that are juniors and seniors are going in, I almost wish that they kind of had this kind of exposure. It would really have helped them in the long run. So my hope is that we can eventually get to this level of rigor in all of our Spanish classes.
Well, the Spanish students I've talked to said this is so much more difficult than having a teacher that really knows it and understands it, because the communication has not been great. I think it's gotten a little better, but it's not great. But it's nobody's fault that we don't have the teachers. I understand that, but that is a great, I'm just a big believer in teachers to pupils. I just think that's where the education is really done. I think we're doing the best we can do under the circumstances, but I appreciate you staying on top of it.
Thank you.
And then the second slide gives you the turnover profile, where we lost 45 employees this year, 9 retired, 4 moved from the area, 21 left for another district, 2 were not rehired, 1 international teacher left us, and then 8 for other reasons, with a turnover percent of 11% this year. Are there any questions about the hiring and turnover profile?
Other than that, we seem pretty consistent when you look back
Over the turnover?
over the years.
Except for we lost 50% more to another district.
We did, and some of that may be that because we now know a little bit more about where our people are going. I did conduct exit interviews with 33 of the 40 possible folks, so we were able to get a little bit more information from them as to why and where. So there could be a little bit better data, I guess is a better way to say it.
Are we feeling better about our exit interview process? I know at one time.
Yes, sir, we are. The ones that did not come in and meet with me, I gave them the opportunity to do a phone interview, and then I also sent out a survey to those that didn't do either the in-person or phone, and that's where we got a lot of participation. So we were able, like I said, to get a lot of feedback from that this year, and we feel really good about the feedback that was given.
Thank you.
And out of the 21 that you had there, does anything stand out to you as the number one reason? Was it geography or was it?
It varied. A lot of times it was closer to home, different opportunities. It really varied. There's not one thing that really stands out as to why they left for another district.
Did any of them say pay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other
Dr.
questions?
Webb,
Yes, sir.
just go back for a moment. I still have a couple of psychologists there. We can't find them all. What's the situation on that?
With the what, sir?
Psychologists.
Psychologists, we were able to hire 2 this year that have been positions that have been out there for a couple of years. One was being filled with a contract provider, and another one had been vacant. So we did fill those, and right now we are full as far as I'm correct on that, as far as our school psychologist positions, which was a big thing for us to hire 2 this past year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hunter, Dr. Hunter.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Mr. Super Cabinet, and our community. On last month, I shared with you approximately how many students we had riding the bus. I kind of rehashed that again for you, refresh our memories. We had 144 riders on the bus for the Whitmire community area with 4 buses. In Newberry, we had 197 riders with 27 buses. Mid-Carolina, we had 179 with 21.
What was that Newberry figure?
The Newberry was 197. And as of today, for the month of September, we currently have 153 students for Whitmire community area on 4 buses. For Newberry, we have 237 with 27 buses. For our Mid-Carolina area, we have 273 on 21 buses. As you can see, we have a total of 52 drivers for the entire district. And in case you're wondering, we still have our under 50% of our students on our bus, and their social distance as well on the bus. And the max that we have on one of our buses are 24 students, so we're way below our 50%. Also, our buses are scheduled daily to be cleaned. And if you would like to have that documentation stating that they've been signed every single day, several times a day, I had a documentation for all areas if you would like to take a look at that. I also have our route descriptions as well as our seating charts for the entire district. So if you would like to look through that, I have that in hand as well. At this time, I would like to thank my Director of Transportation, Mr. Jamie Gartman, and his great staff, as well as our bus drivers and bus assistants. At this time, I will entertain any questions.
So, Dr. Hunter, the number of people that are riding buses has gone up considerably in a month. Is that because they were bus riders and just decided to take advantage, or have they previously said they're going to Newberry 1 and then come back?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I looked at those numbers as well. It has a lot of factors in there. We had some of our students that came from our virtual to our hybrid, and we also had some students move into the district, and some of them, I guess, they just wanted to see what was going to take place, to see what we're going to honor our word, make sure our buses are safe and clean on a daily basis. So they actually completed the contract, so they just wanted to kind of feel and see what we were going to do. And I say, you know what, the proof is in the pudding. We have it right here. We're going to make sure our students are safe, as well as our bus drivers.
Have we had any bus drivers voice concern?
Well, you know, everybody's got concerns every single day. We just want to make sure we're here to live for another day and make sure our legacies will continue to grow and make this community great. And we want to make sure our precious cargo gets to school every single day safely, and that's our students. So that's what everybody's in everybody's mind, in my humble opinion.
Have we had any bus drivers go out sick?
When it comes to that, I think I can't answer that. We're gonna make sure that all of our students are safe at every single time, and just like you can look at the numbers, and I'm pretty sure Ms. Oach is going to get into that in our numbers, and I say the proof is once again in the pudding, looking at the numbers.
So safely, how many students can we transport on a bus now?
If you're looking at about 70, so 50% of 70, you're looking at about 31. That includes our bus driver as well as our aides on the bus. Some of our buses have them, especially our special needs, but like I said, we're way under that number, which is 50% of 70, 72.
Dr. Hunter, if I could add something there, Mr. Bledsoe and members of the board, you probably have seen where the state is allowing up to a 67% capacity, but that is with the assumption that every other seat would have 2 members of the same family or the same household in those seats, and that doesn't necessarily always pan out on every route.
Are there any other questions? All right, that's all that I have, Madam Chair, and thank you all for all that you do for our students in our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Carey?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I am here to share with you our hybrid enrollment numbers, and you should have those in front of you. If you will take a look at that first page, it gives you details on Group 1. And you can see that first page encompasses all of our elementary enrollment for that Group 1 hybrid, which is 956 total students. If you flip to that next page, you can see our enrollment for our hybrid students at the secondary level, which is 1,013. And then and that's for Group 1. If you flip to that third page, you'll see Group 2 elementary enrollment numbers, and those are very, very similar to the Group 1. And then if you flip to that fourth page, you'll see we have 1,010 secondary students in Group 2 for hybrid. And then finally, overall, you'll see the breakdown for elementary and secondary with all groups together. So that would be, if all students came on the same day, what those class sizes would look like. And that results in a total of 3,889 total hybrid students. Are there any questions about any of these numbers?
Is the total virtual enrollment still 1,892?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Ms. Hamilton is getting ready to speak to those numbers shortly.
Dr. Carey, how many pages are we supposed to have? I think
You should have,
One.
I went over 6 pages.
I got 7.
Well, you made that 7th one is probably Ms. Hamilton's page, because that details the
Yeah, it
virtual
is.
enrollment.
Okay.
And I forgot to say, and I want to thank the Office of Student Services, Ms. Couch and Dr. Hunter put that together on Friday, so these are very up-to-date numbers.
I just
Of course,
right order.
in the current environment, you know, up-to-date is out of date an hour after it happens or it's printed, but it's a pretty accurate number, all the same.
My questions are not about numbers. I've had several calls today. Been on the phone quite a bit today, and that's fine. I didn't have the answers for these folks. It seems that the 2 hot button topics are consistency across the district and communication. And when I say communication, consistency, I'll use 3rd grade as a point. We've got a 3rd grader at one school that receives a whole lot less work on a daily basis for their virtual days than a 3rd grader at another school. And the parents that I've spoken to are concerned that their child is not being challenged and falling behind. I know we can't be totally consistent at every school every day. I get it. And we can't even do that between,
Right.
if we have 3 third-grade teachers at a school, it's going to vary from class to class. I get that. What are we doing to ensure that we get the most consistency that we can?
Well, in ELA and math, Ms. Reichard and Ms. Jamison put together a presentation for all teachers prior to the beginning of school about pacing, because pacing should be the same for hybrid and virtual students. And a big piece of our Wednesday is getting those teachers together safely, socially distanced, to collaborate with each other. Not just hybrid third grade teachers together in a school, but hybrid and virtual teachers together. So they're all communicating and on the same page. So that is our biggest effort that we have, and Ms. Jamison and Ms. Reichard are working with those teachers throughout every Wednesday and even visiting them throughout the week. I would ask if a parent had that question, have they talked with the teacher about their concerns, and then if so, have they then talked with Ms. Hamilton if they haven't been satisfied? Because those are 2 very important people who need to know that there is a concern so that it can be addressed as well.
That's one of the hot button topics, as I said. The other one is just communication on how we roll this thing out, how we got started, how we're going to continue. I understand that we put together in a month what should have taken a year. So I get it. And that's unfortunate for our teachers as well as our students. But those were the 2 big topics that I've got. And obviously the other one is, when are we coming back? But I'm sure Mr. Seaver will address that in his remarks. But I just wanted to address those 2 topics. And I understand, and I hope parents understand, that one child may take a worksheet and take 3 hours, and another child take it and do it in 45 minutes. So the proof is, the truth is somewhere in the middle, I'm sure.
Right, and in a non-COVID year, those same types of concerns exist. If I have a student who goes to Mid-Carolina Middle, and then my nephew goes to Newberry Middle, and they're in the same grade, and they're doing different things, you're going to have those questions. It's just amplified in this current situation.
Dr. Carey, I'd like to piggyback on what Mr. Hammond said, because I'm getting some of those same phone calls, and one of the things that I keep hearing consistently is, and I don't understand enough about the Schoolology, but apparently there's 4 or 5 tabs in that, and one teacher may put one assignment under one tab and then another assignment under another one, and unless you go through and check them all. And so I've had several parents ask if there's a way that you can have one tab where all the homework is done so that you're not having to go through, or if you're, like several of them told me that, it's hard enough working with their kids, and then the kids get frustrated, you get frustrated, and you may think that you've hit all tabs, and then come the next day, you find out that you didn't, and then an assignment doesn't get done. I've heard that dozens of times, so I don't know if that's something that, IT or the leadership team or whoever would do that, is maybe, come up with a place where all teachers could put an assignment just in one place instead of having to hit 5 different tabs for their assignment.
That's certainly something we can take a look at. I know Ms. Hamilton has been working with those teachers and trying to make sure that they put things in consistent places. Right now, our biggest one while we were getting up and running was, where's the link to the Google Meet going to be? Because sometimes it would be in one area and sometimes in another. And so I think, and she told them, just put it in both. Because we want to make it as easy as we can as we continue to learn more and more about Schoology.
Right.
And that brings to mind another question. How are we holding our students and teachers accountable in this environment?
The way we would hold them accountable any other way. Ms. Hamilton pops in, and she's been going to visit them. She's popped into...
talking about hybrid as well. Okay.
Yeah, the same way we always have. Those principals have been getting in and out of those classrooms, both virtually and hybrid. Ms. Hamilton has been meeting with them, making visits. So,
and I understand that the first few weeks were very, very hard, so accountability was probably a little forgiving.
Sure.
But I know we got interims going out this week?
Today.
So I'm hoping our accountability, I don't want to be heavy-handed, but I really think that we got to make sure our teachers are absolutely doing exactly what training that we provided, what that came up with, and then we got to make sure that our students are not being lax as well. The nightmare that I heard on the virtual side, and I'm sure you're going to speak to this, was kids would show up for the morning, leave for lunch, and never show back up.
Yeah. Well, we definitely have a population of students who, when they signed up for virtual, I think felt like it was going to be like the packets all over again, and they weren't going, even though we were very clear, these are live sessions, you have to be here to be counted present. It will be rigorous work, just like it would be in the in-school setting. They're not believers yet. I think they're believers today after interim, and they're believers after getting some attendance and truancy letters. But yeah, that's been a pain point. That's been a pain point. And it's going to take some time to work through that. But I can assure you, they are being held accountable.
I have a question with our hybrid students, because I have heard as well that some of them on their days at home are not necessarily getting all that work done or any of the work done. Are we reaching out from a school level to those families and parents? Because that was a concern I had, voiced in August, that especially elementary children, it's not necessarily the students' fault in my mind or responsibility. If there's, what's the problem that we can maybe step in to try to help? Because children are falling behind, obviously, if they're not doing their work.
Just like in a normal year, if students aren't completing their work and aren't participating, those teachers are expected to make contact with parents and document that. And then if it still continues to involve their principal, we may even need to involve case managers from student services to go to the home, if that's what it takes, to follow up on those concerns.
Where does truancy, you mentioned truancy earlier, where does that kind of kick in? Is that somebody that's just not logging in? Or
it could be
someone that's not completing assignments?
Well, if they're not logging in, if they're a Newberry 1 student and they are totally virtual, if they aren't logging in, they aren't there, and they're counted absent. They're counted absent. And they would be in the truancy process just like any of our brick and mortar kids. It's treated exactly the same.
The one thing I kept hearing in the hybrid schedule is when they go in, like they go in on Monday, they give them enough work to do for every day of the week. And this might be the way you set it up, the way to be instructed, because they're trying to cover all that ground with those children. Well, many parents have gotten grandparents or babysitters to pick up the children. They can't do the work now. They're getting mad at us because of that. But there seems to be some median in there. I don't fault the teachers. I think they're trying to do what they need to do. But the students are overwhelmed because they're asking them to do work that has never been taught. And they say, do what you can. Well, that's a futile exercise when you do what you can and you never heard it before.
Right. They should be doing work that they went over in class. For instance, today's group should be doing assignments tomorrow and Wednesday that are practicing what they learned today. And if it is new, it should be more of a formative type assessment or activity where they're just doing some reading to prepare for the lesson and front load for when they come in on Thursday. That's how I would see it. I hope we're not giving kids work that they may or may not be able to do, and we just hope for the best.
If we have a teacher that's assigning something that they have not covered in class, you're saying that should not be taking place?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
No. Now, if it's a reading assignment, then that's different. But no, I wouldn't.
I'm talking about math.
Math, no. No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. It's one thing if it's a few questions just to see, okay, how much do my kids know? I'm going to do a quick pre-assessment to see what they know and what they don't know, but that should be something that the students are held accountable for if they don't know how to do.
Okay.
Along those same lines, one of the other complaints that I've heard today is the students are not, they send a worksheet home, the student does the work, but they're not getting feedback the same way they would in a classroom environment. It's the nature of the beast, I get it. Is there a method or a strategy that we have to help that student that completed the worksheet but just totally bombed it? Do we have a strategy built into the hybrid schedule to to help that child is really struggling?
Yeah, that should be something the teacher does. They may not be able to do it immediately. When they come in, let's say Monday with some homework, the teacher may need some time to grade that, but I would expect that there would be follow-up either on Wednesday, if the teacher can, call in to the student or do a little virtual Google Meet with them real quickly just to check in, or at least on Thursday when that child comes back, some individualized attention for that.
And again, a lot of this is just the nature of the beast.
It is.
And I'd like to clear up what I said. Every parent that's approached me or grandparent that's fussed at me, I've said, contact the teacher, and the teachers have been great in their response to them. Many times, they didn't give them an answer, but they explained to them what they were trying to accomplish.
We have, I know things have been imperfect at best, but our teachers have worked hard. They have risen to the occasion.
I want to clarify that as well. Everybody that I've talked with has praised our teachers.
Teachers are great.
They realize that we're just in a terrible situation, and they're very proud of what the teachers are doing.
That has been my experience as a hybrid grandmother that's in charge 3 days a week of teaching a first grader.
That's a different kind of grandmother.
I'm not the most technology savvy person, so it's been nice that I could just message the teacher, or one day, honestly, I couldn't get it pulled up, and of course she allowed him to do that at another time. And I can't say enough for how just that one teacher that I've been experiencing has been very gracious with the adults involved in making sure that eventually Aaron got it done, even though we might not have done it that first day we were really supposed to, because we were having technical difficulties. So.
And you might not want to address that. We kind of shooting arrows at you, but we had 2 days when the district was completely without Wi-Fi service. Is that right? At least 2 days.
Yes. Yes,
Do we
sir.
know, was that a power outage both
That was
times?
actually a broken line due to AT&T. AT&T was out.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily us.
Luckily, one day was a Wednesday when we weren't doing live instruction, so that helped. And the other day was later in the afternoon, so we had at least completed half a day of live
But
instruction.
I'd heard what Ms. Metz had heard too. We can't get on. We've done everything we can. We just can't log on.
Well, I think we all have received those phone calls as well as the emails concerning this. But one of the biggest question was asked to me was communication. Parents are not getting enough communication. So what do we need to do? What can we do so that the parents will know what's going on with their students concerning the hybrid or either the virtual?
So what kind of specific communication would they like?
Well, they didn't really go into details. They just stated that communication, the lack of communication from the district.
I want to jump in here. I believe that based on the folks that I talked to today and the emails that I've gotten, I think the communication that they're referring to is how all this was going to go down before it went down. Not necessarily communication today with the teachers. I think they felt like they were in the dark. And I think our teachers thought that for a long time as well. But I know, and y'all know, that we couldn't tell them what we didn't know. So I think that's the communication that most of my folks were talking about was as this thing developed, they didn't get the answers that they needed. But quite frankly, I just don't think we had the answers for them. I really don't.
And Ms. Reader, I would encourage anybody that if there are parents out there that feel like that they're not getting communication, whether it be from our administrators or teachers or this district staff, to contact the school, email the school, and if they feel like they're not getting any results, they're certainly welcome to call, and depending upon what level it is, go through secondary, elementary, or they can call my office. But we have every intention to do that. And while I'm saying that, again, we all know that we are in a worldwide pandemic and things are never going to be perfect. We fully understand that. But I want to say something about our teachers. Our teachers, our nurses are absolutely, totally overwhelmed, just like these parents are right now. They're being asked to do things that they never thought in their educational careers that they would have to do. So I think that we've got to have patience for everybody. That includes our staff. But if we are not following up, or we feel like that the work is not getting to the children and they're not getting the support that they need, whether it's the building level, whether it's the district level, please contact us and let us know so we can do something about it, because we are all about helping children. That's what we're all here for.
Dr. Perry, I just would like to, and I know that you answered it, but just to make sure that I understand, and then also I've had several parents that have emailed me asking me that, and these happen to be hybrid parents, that if the children are attending the 2 hybrid days, they have work assigned, but they don't turn in their work. They get a 0 for not turning in their work, but also, besides getting the 0, they're being counted as absent?
They should be, yes. If they do not turn in, let's say you have a hybrid student in Group 1 who goes Monday and Thursday, if they don't turn their assignments in that are due, that are for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, they should be getting an absence for those days, as well as a 0 on the assignments. And just like if they were at school, except they're not at school, so I retract that. Just like as if, they didn't show up for school, if they don't turn in those assignments, then yes, for those days they would be absent. Now, we've also had the same question, well, if they come on Monday and Thursday and they don't do any work, are they counted absent? Well, no, because they're there. And we're not in the practice of counting students who show up for school, even if they don't do anything and put their head down, as absent. They're physically there, so they'll be counted present for those days. But the 3 days that are supposed to be virtual, they would be counted absent if they don't turn any work in.
Okay, and that's not only just set by our district, I mean, that's set by the Department of
Yes.
Education.
State Department. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
so that's okay. That's what I thought, in reference. The other thing that I had actually 3 emails today is that apparently, because this was and I got them after school was out, so I guess some people did get their reports of what their kids are doing. And in these particular cases, and I have no way of knowing whether this is accurate or not, but they were saying that they were told, like the first week, and these are again hybrid students, that they had a rough start off as to, like when we were talking about that they could download the stuff and then work on it later, that, for whatever reason, maybe they couldn't get the internet to work, or it took more power than maybe what their internet had. They weren't able to get that, and so the first couple of weeks it was kind of rough starting until the parents got them to a place where they could make sure that they were able to download those things. And so, maybe some of the work, some of it got done for those days, but maybe not all of it got done on what was supposed to be done, and that they were told that that the grading process, I mean, it is what it is, and even if you had a rough start, it doesn't make any difference. Because sort of from what that was being said to me, and then kind of what you're saying, is that there has been a little bit of leeway for that first couple of weeks.
Well, if a child couldn't download something and turn it in, I would hope that the teacher worked with that student to get it done later, or that the parent communicated to the teacher, look, we had a rough time getting this assignment downloaded. Can he turn it in the next time he comes? What arrangements can we make? The more that communication, because it goes both ways, is provided to that teacher on the front end as quickly as possible, the easier it's going to be to work through some of that, versus when an interim comes out and, oh, wait, those, I got 0s on those assignments. I had computer problems. That makes it, not that we wouldn't work with a student, and not that I wouldn't hope that our teachers and principals would work with students, but it makes it a lot more difficult when that happens 4 weeks after the fact. So if parents could be as upfront and students could be as upfront as possible when they are experiencing those problems, so the teachers know and can work with them, that would be the most helpful thing to do.
Okay. And then if they go to a teacher and a teacher tells them that, well, this is what came down to us came down to me from the district, and this is what, because you have some people that, this is the rules and they're just going to read it, and there's not going to be any kind of leeway, or there's not going to be any kind of flexibility. So at that point, you would advise that parent to
Well, the
go talk
district
to an
hasn't sent
administrator?
down any directive that we
Okay.
don't need to work with students who a late assignment is a teacher and school-based decision.
Okay.
That's not something we mandate. We
Okay.
mandate minimum grades as far as 9 weeks, and we mandate, what would be a minor grade, a major grade, a homework grade, and how many of those need to be. But the rest of that is at the complete discretion of the teacher. So as far as late assignments go, that's not a directive that our
Okay,
office
so
has put out.
that's up to the teacher, and then if
It
they
is.
don't like that result, then the next step is to go see the principal.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. I will ask Ms. Hamilton to come forward now and talk about virtual enrollment.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Mr. Suber, and all of our community members that are watching. As Dr. Carey already shared, at the back of your packet, I think you should have a sheet with the virtual enrollment numbers. We'll start with our elementary virtual numbers. As you can see, it's broken down by each grade level. And at the bottom, in that first column, you'll see the total number of students for our pre-K through 5th grade, which is 946 students as of September 25th. You can also, if you look there, you also see the number of teachers at each grade level as well as the student-teacher ratio. If you look at the chart on the right side, there are our secondary numbers. We have students in grades 6 through 12. And at the bottom, you'll see the total number of our secondary virtual students is currently 946 students as well. We also have that secondary number broken down by middle school and high school students. As you can see, we have a total of 441 middle school students and 505 high school students for a total virtual enrollment of 1,892 students. Further down the page, you can see we have it broken down by middle school, each high school, and the specific numbers at each grade level. Does anybody have any question about our virtual numbers?
I had a question at the secondary level. Do we have teachers that are like totally virtual teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we, how many, because you didn't show the teachers in the secondary. How many virtual teachers do we have?
So at the secondary level, right now, we have 23 high school teachers. And this is not including our teachers that are teaching self-contained, our special education students. I would have to get that to you later. At the middle school level, we currently have 17 middle school teachers.
So, Ms. Hamilton, of the 1892, are all of them enrolled and up and going?
Yes, sir. They all are enrolled and up and going. However, Mr. Bledsoe, I will be honest, attendance is a concern. We do have some students that are, spotty here and there. There are several attendance concerns, and the teachers are constantly reaching out to those students and their parents, also in contact, because, we have some teachers that are teaching students not only from their home school, but they have students from other schools throughout the district. So they are constantly in contact with myself, those principals, the Power School, as well as attendance clerks, and we definitely are doing our best to contact them and also reaching out to student services for additional support.
So do you have any that you say have dropped off the grid?
We have several that we have been tracking down. I will say, we are in constant contact with those parents, and a lot of times we do end up speaking with the parents. I know we have principals who have made some home visits. I myself have made some home visits, meeting parents, going to their place of work to check in. So we are making every effort in those situations where students have fallen off the grid, because ultimately it's our responsibility to make sure that they are present and accounted for. So we definitely are working overtime to ensure that we meet the the needs of those students, because as Mrs. Metz said earlier, especially with our elementary students, in a lot of cases, you have children that you can't rely on them to log themselves on. They need that assistance. So we definitely make sure we do that due diligence of reaching out to those students.
What kind of numbers are we talking?
Well, it's a little all over the place, Mr. Ham, to be quite honest, and it depends on the day. We have some that, have been showing up, after we reach out to them. For example, I got an email from a principal today, a kid that was in their building last week, met with the student for over an hour and his mom, and today the student was a no-show. So in cases like that, it's very alarming to us. Right now, just based on, just an estimate, I would probably say about 40 kids that are on my list that we are constantly contacting and trying to reach out to those parents. I would say probably closer to 41, because I added another one today. The teacher and myself met with the student, his grandmother, his mom on Friday, stayed with them until 4 o'clock. Kids showed up today for a first meeting and didn't show up after that first meeting. So again, just some of the things that you all have already mentioned and spoken to Dr. Carey about through this platform, but definitely we are working overtime and trying to reach these students, hold them accountable, as well as the parents, because again, it's not just the students. In most cases, it's the parent responsibility also.
At what point does it become a truancy issue for?
Well, we are following the truancy guidelines. After three absences, they are contacted, they receive a letter, then we get to 5, then we get to the 10-day letter. So we are going through the truancy process. And please keep in mind, the first 2 weeks of school, Dr. Hunter and his staff, as well as myself, Dr. Carey, we all, were very understanding in giving students grace, because we know there were a lot of connectivity issues. The first 2 weeks of absences were waived. So at this point, any student who is receiving a truancy letter was given grace for the first 2 weeks. Ms. Lightsey, her staff with technology, we know we have some folks in areas that they don't have internet, they have poor connectivity. Definitely, we understand that. However, with the survey, as Dr. Carey has already stated, being able to provide reliable internet was something that the parents agreed to, signed off on, and we do understand there are some areas, even in town, where parents can't get wireless service. Ms. Lightsey has contacted AT&T. She has also been in contact with the State Department to see what other options we have for those parents, because we do have some who are doing what they're supposed to do. They've been over to meet with me. They've been over here with technology, and it really is not their fault. They thought they were in a location. Rosalind Drive, I think, was one of the areas here in town, and that grandmother can't get internet where she is. But she has done everything she's supposed to do, so we continue to try to work with those families and reaching out to the State Department, different companies, to see what options they have for our students and parents in order to receive the internet service.
Now, this may be a question for technology, but I know we had the opportunity to get some hot spots to handle these kind of cases. How many hot spots have we placed?
I do not have that number, Mr. Ham, but I definitely can get with Mr. Rawls and Ms. Lightsey. I'm sure we can get that to you.
And
it's in excess of 1,000.
1,000 hot spots, and are they working?
Yes.
Yes, for the most part, the hot spots have been great. The technology department has even been so kind. The first batch were T-Mobile. Those don't work so well in some of your areas, especially we found in the Pomeria area. So those parents who had sketchy hot spots were allowed to bring them back to the district office and swap them out for the Verizon hot spots, which might have a little bit better connectivity. So when I tell you that the technology department has been wonderful in trying to help parents, we also have some cases where we have students who, let's say, for example, you have 5 children at home. We know that 5 children being connected to one hotspot is a bit much. It's a lot for a hotspot to be able to withstand. So we have even worked with those parents and trying to provide them with an additional hotspot to ensure that they have what they need in order to be able to have access to the Wi-Fi.
And those are actually covered by some CARES funding, right?
Yes, sir. Well, the State Department, I think, were issued.
State.
It's issued by the State Department.
Okay.
So, Ms. Hamilton, if the board were trying to make a decision about going back to 4 or even 5 days, could we count on 1,850 students staying in virtual
No, sir. I definitely think at this point there are a lot of parents and students who, after going through this process, definitely feel like it is not a fit for them. Virtual learning is a great platform. It truly is. And I know for a lot of our parents, they are choosing this virtual option because of the pandemic. And I have parents call me every day, Mr. Bledsoe, and they have concerns. They want their child to be able to go back hybrid. But I also have parents who call daily and say, hey, my kid is hybrid. I want them to be a virtual student. So I definitely feel like we'll have a bit of a mixed bag when the time comes, or if we do entertain that notion. However, I do feel like for the most part, we do have a lot of parents who are thoroughly for it. Their kids are doing well. And I feel like those are the families where the Wi-Fi is working seamless. They're not having issues. They understand the platform. It's user-friendly for them. But we do have a lot of students, as you mentioned earlier, at home with grandparents, caregivers, babysitters, and it's just not working for them. So I definitely feel like it varies upon their need and where they are in the realm of virtual education. But definitely, I do not feel like we would have all 1,892 say, yeah, we're going to stay virtual. I just think it'll be a bit of a mixed bag as far as what people want and what meets their needs right now.
And piggyback on top of that, if you don't mind.
No.
We asked for a semester commitment. Our end of the semester in December. What is the transition for those students that want to go hybrid? How do we take the teachers from the virtual academy and plug them back into a building?
Well, and
y'all thought about that?
Yes, sir, we have,
yes.
and we've had several conversations regarding what that would look like. And we definitely know that we need to survey our parents ahead of time to get just an idea of what those numbers would look like. And it would take a lot of planning on my part, along with the building level principals, as well as this district office staff we have here, to look at those numbers and figure out. It's going to be, a game of chess, if you will, determining which person to move, who goes back, how many third graders are we going to have virtual, how many fourth graders are we going to have that are hybrid. So it's going to take a lot of planning on our end to really work the pieces of this puzzle to get balance and make sure that we have enough staff to provide education for children who want to stay virtual and for those children who want to go hybrid. And the other piece is we also have to think about some of the waiting lists that we have for parents who are hybrid and want their kids to go virtual. So there are a lot of facets that we as a district and you all as a board, we all will have to really put our heads together and lay out a plan to determine what's best for our students.
Mr. Ham, the issue that you just brought up is the exact reason that we asked for a semester's commitment from our virtual students, because you can't just midstream start switching and just opening it up and say, okay, if you want to go hybrid, you can go hybrid. If you want to go virtual, you can go virtual, because depending upon where the majority of that flow goes, then there's the possibility that you're going to have to be moving teachers again, and the last thing we can do is do that in the middle of a semester.
And Ms. Reader, I think the communication piece that you were talking about earlier is going to be vital at the end of the semester.
Yes, sir, you are exactly right. And we definitely, Dr. Carey, Mr. Suber, and I have spoken at length about being able to get that plan out, get those numbers in, so we definitely can work with our parents and students, teachers, building level principals, to make sure we don't have the issues that we had with the startup. I personally want to make sure that it is very smooth. It has been a challenge. Communication has been, we definitely know we started behind, if you will. Definitely trying to reach out to parents. We did work out a system where we could have some parent meetings in each of the attendance areas, and we were able to meet with some parents and provide them with some documentation, to talk about expectations, schedules, just frequently asked questions. A full variety of information was given to those parents and students that chose to attend those meetings, because we know where we lacked communication in the beginning and definitely don't anticipate having those problems moving forward. Yes, sir.
I have a question. The first question would be, pre-COVID-19, did we have issues with attendance?
Yes, sir. From where I stand, I guess, for me, some of the names that are coming across my desk as the building level principal at Newberry Middle School at the time, and having experience at Boundary and Newberry High, just some of the names that you come across are some students that have been habitual, and Dr. Hunter will attest to that too. Some of the same names that we are turning in, these are students that we know in the past have had some issues with truancy.
We would have, I would say, on a given month, approximately 30-plus students in truancy court.
Right. And I think that's important to note, and to know that because these are issues that was happening before COVID. So, I mean, I think it's important for us to know that as a board, to know that these issues was happening and trying to really find out what the problem is or what the situation is with these families. I think that's important information. So, you know, I just wanted to put that out there. And also, I think that when we do the survey, that we put a number out there that we want to reach. If it's 60%, 70% before we close the survey down. I know we get to a point where we say, hey, it's up for a week or 2 weeks. But I think it's important for us to set a number and a standard to try to reach for the survey, so that way we make a more accurate decision on what we do moving forward. So,
thank you.
I agree with that.
I think that's a good point to make, but what would be the worst case scenario if there's, say we got 30 truant students? We can't just forget about them. Would we try to bring them back into school, or is there some kind of punishment for virtual school, or what is our option as a district?
So traditionally, with students who are truant, of course, after they have missed 10 consecutive days, on the 11th day, they are dropped. However, prior to being dropped, we do have truancy conferences. The student, their parent come in and they meet with the building level administrator as well as the guidance counselor or whomever may handle the truancy at each respective school. And you have a conference and you set out some goals and objectives just to hold the student as well as the parent accountable, because, you know, let's be realistic, we are talking about children. And while we do know we want them to have some responsibility, we also want the parent to have some ownership and accountability as well. So before we get to a place where we are dropping students and they're going through the truancy process, we do have those conferences, and that is documented.
So will the option be get back in virtual, or would you say if nothing else works, we're going to have to put you in the hybrid program?
Yes, sir. Right now, definitely, we normally are bringing them back in virtual. We have had one situation where we had a student who was on the verge of being dropped. That student did come back virtual. At this time, we're not at a place where I can stand here and say they're going to automatically go back hybrid, because that requires checking with the building level principal, seeing if there's space available, and just going over just some general logistics to make sure that that is something that we can do. But we have had some cases of truancy where the building level principals have been great. They had space. We were able to meet with that student, those parents, prior to dropping the student, and they were in some cases allowed to go back to their campus. But again, that is a conversation that they have with Dr. Carey, myself, Dr. Hunter, and make sure everybody is in agreement that it is the best option for the student.
But for those students where that has happened, I mean, is there a difference in, I mean, are they producing at that hybrid level where they weren't producing at a virtual level, if they're allowed to come back in?
Now, I'll be honest, I can't answer, because once they go back to the hybrid model, I normally don't follow them as closely as I would if they were a virtual student. However, the accountability piece, of course, face-to-face, in a true brick and mortar setting is, I feel like for most students, it gives them much more structure, and of course, there is no setup with having to turn the laptop on. And for most of the students that we've had in that situation, it was a situation where they really didn't have anyone at home to help. Some cases it was the internet issue. So I would like to think they would be doing better just because of the circumstances and the structure that they have at the building level.
Okay. Is that something, Dr. Carey, y'all are following to see whether it has made a difference or not?
To begin to pull that data.
Pardon me?
I said I could certainly ask the principals if they could begin following that and pull that data.
Well, I mean, that would be good just to know, I mean, if that makes a difference or not.
Well, if they're already truant, Dr. Hunter's office will be tracking that as well.
Okay.
Well, and as you talk about truancy, in a virtual setting could be, A, I couldn't connect, B, I didn't have anybody to help me connect, or it could be I could connect, I didn't need any help to connect, I just didn't want to connect.
Yes, sir.
And to me, that last one, we need to just hold the feet to the fire. I don't want to forget anybody either, But we got a lot going on, and if a student don't want what we have, how do you help them?
Yes, sir. And I will say, I have spoken with teachers, and our teachers are the real heroes in a lot of this. When I tell you that they are working hard to contact and call students and call parents, I'm working hard to call parents and students, and every day, you know, you have a new list of students that you are reaching out to. And as I have shared with the teachers, you are doing a great job, but at some point, you know, you can't continue to call parents and students at 8 o'clock at night. That's your time with your family that you need to be off the clock. So I have told the teachers to give themselves some grace in that, because at this point, I agree, Mr. Ham, we need to hold those students accountable and continue to do our best to reach out to them. However, at some point, they're going to have to be held accountable by the Office of Student Services.
I'd like to just to kind of stop, because you made a statement just now that I think a lot of times that we forget, is that the teachers, whether they're hybrid or whether they're virtual, that you have parents that aren't able to help their kids until maybe they get home, and it may be 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. They're emailing a teacher, they're calling a teacher, and a lot of times the teacher is emailing back or calling back, and then a teacher may be on the phone at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And so, I mean, besides the fact that they were all day at school, and so, I mean, I, for one, commend them on that, because it's, you know, it's become more than, you know, their regular teaching hours, and then just even the hours that a teacher puts in extra time grading papers. You know, because they're taking the time to call parents back, because, you know, they understand too, you know, and feel bad, even though I know I've had several administrators tell me, I'm telling my teachers that cut your phone off at 8 o'clock. And then, you know, but you still have these teachers that, you know, yeah, but little Johnny, you know, I need to reach out, or he's having a tough time. And so I commend all our teachers for, I feel like, going the extra mile there.
Thank you. It's who they are. They want to do what's best for children, and if that means making those phone calls or responding to those emails, a lot of them are really working overtime to take care of their students and parents. So thank you.
Ms. Hamilton.
Anyway, I have heard the same thing that Ms. Lake shared. I've heard that many teachers, when they leave school, they're still helping students and answering a lot of emails at night, you know, when that's their family time, but they are still teaching and reaching out to their students.
And I'm going to kind of agree with Mr. Kirsten, that was probably going on pre-COVID as well.
It was, and the issue now is with having so many students and parents and the emails, because teachers are getting emails from Schoology, they're getting emails to their personal email account, because the students are communicating with teachers through Schoology, which is fantastic. We appreciate those students taking ownership, but it has tripled the amount of email traffic that teachers are accustomed to getting. So it is much more than what they are accustomed to in being just brick and mortar classroom teachers.
My question is, are we having this problem with all the grades or just certain grades?
I think that, you know, again, it is really sporadic. Definitely, I think it's across all grade levels. You know, of course, we have some hot spots. I do feel like, you know, with our pre-K through 2 students, seeing a lot of, and please keep in mind, because we have over 900 elementary students, almost 1,000. So, of course, your pre-K through 5, you're going to see a little bit more of that going on versus your secondary, because 6 through, like middle school, for example, we only have 441 middle schoolers. So, on average, I get more emails about elementary students, and I get more, I would say elementary and probably juniors and seniors. Those are the 2 areas where I'm seeing the greatest concern for student attendance and truancy.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you all, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Suber, and all those who are joining us virtually, I would like to share some state, county, and district data. At your seat, you should have a data report with this information. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association has started doing state data reports that they publish every 2 weeks. And this is specifically reporting on cases in children. So the national cumulative numbers of child cases as of September 24th nationally was 624,890, which represents 10.5% of all cases. If you heard on the news probably a week or so ago, they were saying 10.3%, but the newest data that came out on the 24th is 10.5%. And is 829 cases per 100,000 children in the population. Looking back on June 4th, that number was around 84,000 of childhood cases and around 5.2%. So looking at South Carolina, cumulative numbers of children with COVID cases, 23,653, representing 17.4% of all our cases in the state, with a incident rate of 1,874 per 100,000. As far as child hospitalizations, 171 children hospitalized as of 9/24, which is 1.9% of total hospitalizations, which is a 0.7% hospitalization rate. So the next section is recent disease activity by county. And this information has been put out every 2 weeks for a while back. And I just started since August 10th, just to give you an idea just how that's trending. We were very excited the week of August 24th, where we were thinking, okay, numbers are trending down. And as you see, they have trended back up. And as of 9/24, we are high in all three categories. For the incident rate, we are the third highest county in the state, and for the percent positive, we are the 10th highest county in the state. So now let's look at district data. Cumulative totals since August 17th for students. We've had 189 students with symptoms, 76 close contacts, 47 household contacts, and 19 positive cases. As far as staff, since August 17th, we've had 38 with symptoms, 39 close contacts, 12 household contacts, and 15 who tested positive. Now, when we look at positive numbers, we also report our virtual kids if those numbers, if they call and report that positive, because we always want to make sure that any virtual student, that if they're coming onto campus for sports or coming to the Career Center, we want to make sure we catch those and do our investigation with all those cases. On the back, I wanted to just give you an idea as of today. The number of students out, as of 9/25 on Friday, 25 were out due to symptoms, 40 close contacts, 30 household contacts, and 9 who have tested positive. The number of staff out on Friday, 3 with symptoms, 9 close contacts, 6 household contacts, and 4 who tested positive. So when we have a positive case, we begin our investigation. And I just want to say to my team, they are doing an amazing job. It is overwhelming and it's not easy. But we start our investigation of who have they had close contact with within 6 feet for a cumulative of 15 minutes. Now I will say, because the majority of our classrooms have been socially distanced, that has saved us. So as you see, we have sent out 362 non-close contact heightened awareness letters, which means we have not identified a close contact, but that child may have been in with other children. So that's the heightened awareness letter, which is to monitor for symptoms. We tell them how long, and it's something we all are supposed to be doing anyway as we self-screen prior to coming to school. We have issued 113 non-close contact heightened awareness letters for staff. And we have had to, when we look at a close contact, we do send a letter, but not without calling first. We call that parent to say, it has come to our attention that your child has had a close contact with a positive case of COVID. As such, you're going to need to quarantine this period. We've had 58 of those phone calls and then followed up with the letters. As for staff, we've had 17 close contact quarantines where they've had to quarantine. When we look, DHEC started doing bi-weekly reporting, and I've included some of those numbers just to give you an idea, kind of that total picture. So looking back just in September 7th through today, this is for the whole state. So you can see how we started off with student cases 138 the beginning of September, and then on September 7th, and then on the 24th, we have a total of 501 in the state. And employees, 95 on the 7th, 223 on the 24th, and then, of course, the total numbers. When you can go on DHEC's site, anyone can, and look at cases by school, and when you scroll down, it'll say if it's less than 5 cases for students or less than 5 cases for faculty, then that's how they have it. If it gets above 5, right now we don't have at one place, but once it gets above 5, then they will record that actual number. So I follow up because I don't know, I want to make sure that the cases and things that I have are what they have, so I follow up with them as well. Any questions about the data or any?
The statewide cases, I'm assuming those are actually tested positive.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. And I certainly understand as we make decisions, and they all seem to be hard decisions with everything, there are definitely multiple factors that we have to consider when making these decisions, and the data is not the only factor, but we can't ignore them either. I mean, we're definitely seeing how just in this month that we are having the increase in cases in both staff and students.
Do you see any difference between just being infected with the virus and death rates?
Fortunately for our children, that is very low. Hospitalizations, as you can see, that's low as well. Statewide, South Carolina, 1.9% of our children out of the total hospitalizations are children. Again, one of the big issues which we've said from the beginning is those that we don't know who are positive and take that back home to their family members. And in the beginning, I didn't hear a lot of, honestly, a lot of cases of people dying in our area. But I'm hearing more and more. I went to a funeral, someone who had a complication with COVID, or someone who's had a complication, whether it's blood clots or something cardiac. So I am starting to see and hear more of that closer to home, where before it just seemed like these numbers. So for children, no, thankfully, and we hope that stays the case, but it's the transmission to others that certainly can be the issue. And like I said, our ability to social distance has been tremendous in us keeping the doors open and keeping our kids here. It's when we can't socially distance is when we're going to look at quarantining more children.
I'm hearing from our schools that our children have been more than receptive to doing exactly what we've asked them to do.
Mm-hmm.
0 discipline problems this year already. I know that has a lot to do with the numbers, but it also has a lot to do with these kids want to be back in school. Mm-hmm. The thing that I don't understand, I'm hoping you can help me with,
Let's see.
I've heard from a parent that had a COVID instance in their household that the positive case went back to work in 10 days after the positive case. Everybody else is out for 24 days.
Correct.
That doesn't make any sense to me,
Yeah.
because the person that went back after 10 days didn't even have to have a negative test.
Right.
So I would like for you to explain to me why.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know that can be mind-boggling. So for a household, let's start there. For a household contact, the household contact has to, for the person who's positive, they have to get off of isolation first, and that's a minimum of 10 days. So the person that's positive, they can complete their isolation where they wouldn't be considered contagious anymore if It's been 10 days since the start of symptoms, no fever for 24 hours, and their symptoms are improving. Their symptoms don't have to be gone, but they have to be improving. So let's say all those things are in place for your positive household person. So they come off of isolation in 10 days. So now they're not considered contagious. Now the 14 days starts for the household contacts, because the incubation period for the virus is 2 to 14 days. So now, if that 10th day of that the positive could still be considered contagious, or once they clear that, that's when we add those other 14 days.
So it's better to be positive than it is to be exposed.
As long as you don't have long-term effects, but you can get through faster.
I was asked the same question today because, it's kind of like, wait a minute, the person that had it gets to go back out to...
So if you're exposed, we need to contract it so we can go back to work.
No.
I mean, but you see my point.
Right. I understand. Yes. It's always the worst. The household contacts are the worst, because that's at a minimum. So if you have a household positive who has not cleared their isolation in 10 days, let's say they're running fever, day 10, 11, 12, 13, but symptoms are improving, no fever, day 16, then you add your 14 days to that. So it can be...
So it can get worse.
Yes. So I know, I'm afraid to breathe hard, so because I don't want to be out of work, and it affects us. It affects us all. The household contacts are the longest.
I don't want us to lose perspective, but I just kind of want to keep things what I think we need to look at from a common sense perspective. I had a health care provider within this county send me these numbers, and he got them off the CDC, and so I went to the CDC website to look at them. The infection fatality rate, because the more tests we do, the more cases we'll determine. He said there's probably 50% of children that are completely asymptomatic. But the infection fatality rate, 0 to 19, is 0.00002. 2/100,000ths of a child dying from it. But here's the most amazing thing. From 50 to 69, that fatality rate is 0.0025. 25,000ths of 1% that people die from. He said in most all the deaths, they are related to underlying health conditions. As much as 94% of the 200,000 deaths are related to underlying health conditions that people die from.
You're correct. They're definitely. You're correct. The underlying health conditions does have a play, but there are also ones that are healthy adults that we're seeing those issues too. So I would be careful.
I want to be careful.
Right, that's right.
But I just don't want to lose perspective.
Right. So the death rate, it's not just about the death rate. It's about hospitalizations. It's about people who have long-term effects or who are on a vent for a month and have to, there's a lot of other factors that go into play. And I think one of the issues, we've hopefully been able to help the community as well with the hybrid model and social distancing. So we're hoping they're not taking those, taking it back to the people they live with. But you're correct. The fatality rate is, you have more people with underlying conditions. But sometimes people have underlying conditions they don't even know about. And then,
I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But I've also had experience with a couple of people who've gone through it, and one teenager told me she didn't even know she had it other than losing sight or sense of smell and taste for a few days. But her mom got or tested positive for it, and she said the worst she ever felt was like a bad sinus infection.
Right.
So sometimes we overplay it. Just because you get it doesn't mean you're going to die.
Oh, absolutely not.
Well,
That's right.
If our goal as a district is to say we do not want one case to be transmitted, we'll never make that goal.
Correct.
But if you look at the numbers, if you say we got 19 out of a student population of 5781 so far, then that's less than 0.5% that have even tested positive. Is that right?
I apologize. Say that.
Did we have, in the front page that you gave us, you said since August 17th, 19 students had tested positive?
Correct.
Okay, that's 19 out of 5,781 students. Okay,
correct.
That's a very low percentage. I think we're doing a good job. I think our plan worked.
Because we're socially distancing in the hybrid model.
And every question I ask is for that. If we can keep virtual school like it is, I think we can look at getting back, because I have seen what it's done, especially to kindergarten, first and second grade. They cannot learn like this. It's almost like the second day is a repeat of the first day, and the third day is a repeat of the second.
Yeah.
It's just hard to catch them up like that.
Now, I will tell you, the positive number that's reported here is the ones that we have reported to DHEC, that we have had to do a report.
Okay.
But when you look at the close contacts, household contacts, those students are out those times too. So one thing that concerns me, if we go back and we are not able to socially distance and we're quarantining more of a class, is just the manpower to handle that. Not just, I mean, from the nursing standpoint, because it is a process to, it's not, okay, we have a positive with DHEC report, all the filing and calling and doing what we need to do on that end, but also with the teachers. So if you've got half your class quarantined, but you're teaching 4 or 5 days a week, so you're doing that, but it's like when finding the time then to now teach your kids that are quarantined. Because it doesn't necessarily mean if you have a positive case in your classroom that the whole class will be quarantined. But if there are assigned seats, there's not social distancing, then those kids within that 6 feet of the positive would have to be quarantined. So this process will still be in effect, with no matter in what situation we.
And there's so much wrong with the process. I'm going to give you this a real life situation. It's very anecdotal, I know. But we had a healthcare worker in Newberry County that worked the weekend, got symptomatic on Sunday night, got tested because they were testing them every day. And her daughter, who is a student at one of our schools, had not seen her that weekend, but self-quarantined. Went on Monday to get a COVID test, came back on Thursday inconclusive. She went on Friday and got a second test. That test got lost somewhere in space, and finally went back today and got tested negative. So those things are almost a nightmare for people to have to deal with some of the things we're doing now. So I say all that to say we've got to have some kind of reasonable compromise.
Right, I completely agree.
We're going to educate children. That's got to be our number one priority, safely.
Right, I completely agree. And while there are a case, like you said, like that, the majority of ones aren't having that situation where they can go get tested. And I will say, the more we get the rapid tests and the rapid PCR tests, the faster things will go. Like now, the health department is offering October 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So if we can get that testing on a daily or every other daily basis in the county, it'll make things a lot easier when we have kids that we know then. Because the problem is, we don't get results back in several days, then we're backtracking and having to figure out, so parent, well, why am I getting this letter and it's maybe, not 14 days, but it's saying monitor your child for this? It's because as soon as we are notified about it, we jump into action. So if we don't know on day one when something happens or they test positive, then we're not able to act. But as soon as we know, I can promise you there's not a nurse in this district who isn't jumping on it.
What is our best case scenario for testing? If we have a student, what do you recommend them about? How are they going to get tested? What's the best way to get the results?
If we send them for testing, well, the best way is if we ever reach a point where we can do rapid PCRs in our health room.
So who's doing it? Some people are doing, athletics are doing rapid testing right now. Not Newberry County, I'm talking about colleges. They're doing rapid testing.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I know there are a couple of doctor's offices in our county who are trying to get the rapid PCR tests going. Some have the rapid antigens. So yes, the more we can get that in place, it will make things, because then we can identify them and exclude them.
And so somebody told me antibody tests are not proof that you're not positive.
Correct.
So it means nothing.
We can't accept those. Correct.
Okay.
Ms. Trish, if we could go back to Mr. Ham's second question, because I've answered this question a bunch of times over the last 2 weeks, but the reason that a person that has tested positive does not have to have a negative test before they come back.
Oh, okay, yes. So people can test positive up to 42 days after having the initial positive because the test is picking up dead virus. So that's why we don't, or as schools and DHEC, we don't require a negative to return, because if we did that, we might have people out for 40 days, but it's not that they're contagious, but that the virus is picking, the test is picking up dead virus.
It's still not a good idea. It's still not a good idea for us to check temperatures at school.
Correct. Correct. It's not recommended. And I'll tell you, our teachers and staff are amazing, because I'm telling you, you can tell a lot by the eyes. So as children are coming in, if there's any issue, as they monitor them throughout the day.
Teachers can look at them, too.
Yeah, you're exactly right, they can. They're immediately sent to the nurse. That's right. Yes, sir?
All of the children tested on the way coming in, your initial testing going into the hybrid system.
I apologize, initial testing?
Yeah, just on the way to see if they're okay or not.
We have not required any initial, where they have to go out and do any testing, like the nasal swab, to enter into hybrid. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. Now, we do ask all parents and staff to self-screen every day prior to coming. And so when I go into a building, when I come in here, they're like, okay, are you okay? I said, I self-screened prior to coming to work, and I'm okay. I mean, we've just all kind of gotten in that mindset. We have to. Because I can't tell you how many cases that start off that say, I thought I had allergies. I took some Zyrtec. I thought I had a sinus infection. And then they end up being positive. So we have to, right now, while disease activity is high, we have to really, stay vigilant.
Well, and not everybody that tests positive for COVID, that when they have the symptoms, actually run a temperature.
Correct. And one thing, I spoke with a parent this week concerned about, being notified. Those people, when we have a case, those people who need to be notified, whether we've identified a non-close contact or a contact, they are notified. The advice that I would give to all of us and to all parents is, whether you know of a positive case or not, you've got to remember that there are asymptomatic people out there. There are people who are contagious 48 hours prior to showing symptoms. So you should act as though everybody has the virus and focus on keeping your 6-foot distance, wearing your mask, and washing your hands. So that's my little preach for that.
Well said.
Sorry.
I don't think that's the first time you've said that.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Mr. Suber, before you give us our superintendent's report, the board would like to take about a 5-minute break, please.
No problem.
Mr. Bledsoe, you can't have a case. Just send the message and so $75 on market fee.